But that's not the end of the song. Somewhere on the border between the known universe and what is called the nothingness, a giant structure hovers, clinging to space like a splinter in the skin of the universe. This is Station Zero, an alien prison that almost no one talks about out loud. Not because it is forbidden, but because it is scary. The prison does not belong to any race. It is older than them all. Built by an unknown civilization, it decides who to accept. Sometimes ships disappear, without a distress signal, without a trace, and only years later someone hears fragments of messages on encrypted channels. Alive. I'm inside. They say, Carr is a former mercenary accused of a crime he did not commit. He was brought to Station Zero without trial. They say they don't take the guilty there. They take the dangerous, no matter the reason. But Carr notices oddities from the first day. The laws of physics don't work the same here. The walls whisper at night. The cells switch places when no one is looking. And some prisoners don't age. One of them claims he's been here since the beginning of time. Gradually, Carr realizes that the station is not just a machine. It is alive. It has a will. It observes, learns, experiences. She gives each prisoner a test. Those who pass disappear. No one knows where. Those who fail remain, turning into silent shadows. On the walls of his cell, Carr finds symbols scratched into his cell, not by his hand, not by his tongue. And yet he understands their meaning. They call to him, find the word, the true one, break the cycle. 3 more join him. Tiyā is a telepath from the planet Meoris who has lost her memory but hears the voice of the prison. Zyron is a cybernetic intelligence that once served the Code Lord's army. Nem is a formless being who calls himself the Last Singer. Together they find a passage to the center of the station, where the heart of the prison is kept. A pulsating crystal that records all the emotions, all the thoughts of all the prisoners. This is not a prison. It is a collection of souls, a collection of fear, pain, hope. When Carr reaches the heart, he learns. He was not a prisoner, but a key. His consciousness is the only one capable of rewriting the very structure of the station. But in exchange for this, he must give up not just his life, but his name, so that the prison will lose interest in him. Without a name, he will be free. But no one will remember that he existed. Carr makes a choice. And at the moment of disappearance, Tiyā whispers, "You are not forgotten. My name will be yours, and you are the word." When Carr disappeared, there was a hum, not a sound, but a vibration in the very fabric of reality. The heart of the prison shook. The walls groaned, and for a moment, everything stopped. Tiyā stood in the half-darkness, clutching the shard of crystal Carr had left to her chest. Symbols that she had not understood before, but now she could hear, flickered on its surface. Not in words, but in meaning. This was his mark, his will, his sacrifice. "He didn't disappear," Nam said, writhing in the shadows like a thread of smoke taking shape. "He became part of us." Zyron scanned the space. His metal face remained motionless, but the internal channels were overheating. Something had changed in the architecture of the station. The structure has changed. The spatial levels have reassembled. We are no longer in a prison. Tiyā felt that the silence around them was new, not threatening, not watching, as if the station had become empty or asleep. They emerged from the chamber of the heart. The corridors, once broken and endless, were straight. The doors were no longer locked. Some chambers were empty. Others were open, but the creatures inside them did not move. Not dead, but not alive either. Frozen in some strange moment like archives. Tiyā froze at one of the cells. Carr stood behind a transparent partition. "No," she whispered. But he didn't move. He just looked ahead as if he was waiting. "It's not him," Zyron said. "It's a memory of him. The station has begun to return reflections. He's not inside anymore. He's outside the system." At that moment, the symbols on the walls lit up, and for the first time in the history of Station Zero, a voice spoke, an old, broken voice, as if thousands of minds were speaking at once. Cycle broken. Intervention activated, initiating transfer protocol. The walls began to shake. "What does this mean?" Tiyā asked. Nam looked up, his shadow trembling. "The prison opens, but not to let out, to absorb more. It wants to be reborn." The station shook, not from vibrations, but from a restructuring of meaning. Doors that had not been there before began to appear in the corridors. Some of them were alive, covered in organic fabric, breathing, feeling. Others shimmered like water and showed not places, but memories. Tiyā clutched the fragment that remained of Kar and felt it pulling at her. Not physically, but mentally, like a call. It led her through tunnels of time and pain. "Where are you taking us, Kar?" she whispered. Nam stopped at one of the liquid doors, his voice sounding deeper than usual. "Here, someone speaks my language. I am no longer the last." They entered. The room beyond the door was black. Not darkness, but emptiness. No up, no down, just sound. Singing. Thousands of voices resonating in timelessness. And in this choir one stood out, recognizable, full of determination. "Kar?" Tiyā breathed out. A form emerged from the void, not a body, but a weave of sound, light and memory. It was he, but not he. He spoke not with his lips, but with vibration. "I went beyond the edge. I saw the center of the prison, and I understood. It is not a prison. It is a vessel, a repository for those who can change reality. The masters who created it were afraid of the word, afraid that we would say it, and throw off their power." Tiyā came closer, and the station trembled in response. She was listening. "Kar, what should we do?" His voice became clearer. "The station has launched the transfer protocol. It is looking for new prisoners, new bearers of the word. If we do not stop it, it will swallow up both worlds and time to prevent the word from being spoken." Nam added, his voice shaking. "She is not just a prison. She is silence embodied in structure. But now she is vulnerable." Kar extended a glowing pulse, a particle of his essence, to Tiyā. "Take it. This is the core of my memory. You must enter the heart again, but not as a prisoner now, as a bearer of the word. You will say it. You will complete the cycle." Tiyā felt the impulse transmitted to her by Kar blaze inside her. It was not just knowledge. It was the memory of everyone who had ever been imprisoned in the station. Thoughts, suffering, hopes. They poured into her like an ocean into a vessel. She knew that to get to the heart she had to pass through the core of silence, the central hub of the station, where even thoughts fade away. Zyron walked ahead, reading the changed structure. His voice was quieter now, as if he too sensed the approach of something that transcended the algorithms. "We are approaching, but something is moving towards us, not the system, not the prisoner. It is the guardian." A form emerged from the darkness, surrounded by a field of distorted space. A tall being, composed of the fragments of time, memory, and machine bones. It did not speak, but a voice sounded in Tiya's head. "You are a note not written into the symphony. You must be erased." Tiyā took a step forward. "I'm not alone. I'm with the word." At that moment, Nem began to sing. His song was fragile but ancient, and the space around him trembled. The guardian stopped. He knew that voice. He remembered. "He was a singer like me," Nem whispered. "His word was stolen, but it's still within." Tiyā raised her hand and directed Kar's energy at the guardian, not as an attack but as a call. The light penetrated his shell, and the face hidden beneath the layers of metal was revealed. It was a man, or had been. His eyes were full of tears, not from pain, but from recognition. "You brought me my song." He dropped to his knees, and the darkness parted. For the first time in centuries, the path to the core of silence was open. Before them was a huge hall devoid of sound. Even their steps were not heard. All thoughts were extinguished, but Tiyā held the fire of Kar within herself. In the center was the heart, larger than before, It pulsated like a black sun. But now she saw its true form. It was not a mechanism. It was a sealed word trapped in a form. She approached, her every movement echoing in the fabric of reality. Xiren and Nim stood behind, unable to move any further. Tiyā placed her hands on the heart. All the names of all the prisoners flashed in her mind, their pain, their thirst to be heard. And then she spoke the word. It was not a word of one language. It was the pulse of life. It was, I am. The station shook. The chains that held her in eternity fell apart. The heart crumbled into light, penetrating all that exists. Tiyā stood in the void and then heard Kar's voice. You did it. Now you are the sound that destroyed the silence. And then the station disappeared. Station Zero was gone. It didn't collapse. It didn't explode. It dissolved like a shadow in the light of dawn. Where it had hung in the void, there was now silence and empty space, but not frightening, but new, clean. Tiyā woke up on board an unfamiliar ship. The metal walls were breathing as if they were alive, but soft. It was not a ship, but a form created from the residual energy of the station. It had formed a place for her. Nam was there. He looked different. His body was glowing now, and every note he sang was free for the first time in millennia. We are not prisoners, he whispered. We are the singers of the new space. Xiren was in deep silence, as if he was reassembling his eye. Strange fragments appeared in his system. Emotions. For the first time he felt, not just analyzed. Tiyā stood up. Her whole body was new, but in her chest the word pulsed. It had not disappeared. It had become part of her being. A few days later they found the first signal, a ship floating in the space distorted by the station. The survivors did not speak. They were broken. But when Tiyā approached and spoke, a spark lit in their eyes, as if they too remembered the word, even if they did not understand it. She realized. The station had left echoes in hundreds of places, traces, fragments, sparks, and now they had to be collected. We are not just survivors, she once told Nim and Xiren. We are the new builders. We will restore not order, but the true voice of the universe. But somewhere in the farthest corner of consciousness, in the remains of the station, he opened his eyes. No name, no form, just a whispering voice, pulled from oblivion. You have spoken the word, but you have forgotten that every word casts a shadow. It all started with a distorted signal. Tiyā's ship, a living vessel that responded to her word, picked up a pulsing rhythm. Not a normal code, not a plea for help. It was a whisper, spreading across the waves of hyperspace like cracks in glass. Xiren processed the data, his voice unnervingly even. The signal spreads exponentially. Not a call, not a transmission, it's an echo of distortion, and it knows our names. Nam was silent. He felt a vibration deep within his being. It was a familiar voice, not his, but from him, like a broken harmony. It's the shadow, he said. What's left when the station is gone? All words cast a shadow, even the true ones. They followed the signal and found themselves near a dead planet, Shard 17 Echo. Once upon a time, there was one of the station's external modules. Now it is a desert saturated with echoes. On the surface was a sealed structure, like an open funnel. Dark light emanated from within, slowly distorting the space. Everything nearby was wrong. The sky was either compressed or stretched. Sounds went backwards. Time jerked. There is a creature inside the funnel. It had no form. It changed its form every second. But it knew Tiyā. Carrier, brought the word, now give it, the shadow must be whole. Tiyā felt something creeping into her mind. Trying to twist the word, turn it into anti-sense, into thoughtlessness. But then Nam began to sing. He used the ancient harmony, the song of the singers that held the form of thought. His voice wrapped around the word like a shield, and Tiyā saw the being for what it was. He, name without sound, a fragment of an ancient mind created before the universe, banished for attempting to rewrite everything. Once imprisoned in the heart of the station, never to speak its anti-word. But now that the station is gone, he is free. Not completely, but enough. You have opened the gates. I am what was lost and what always returns. Where there is light, there I will be. The creature disappeared, leaving behind a mark, a twisted rune reflected in every surface, a symbol that could never be forgotten. Since then, more and more worlds have begun to hear the reverse vibration, the word turned inside out. Some have gone crazy, some have begun to worship it. And Tiyā understood. Victory over the station was only the beginning. To save the word, they would have to find the name of the shadow, something that even the universe was afraid to name. And then she whispered, "We need to go, to the very beginning, to the first singers, to where the word was first spoken." The path to the source was not a map or coordinates. It was a memory, hidden in reality. And only those who carried the word within could hear it. Tiyā sat in the center of the vessel, eyes closed. Within her, the word was no longer a pulse. It was a guiding note, resonating at the very core of the universe. Nem and Xiron remained silent. They felt the space around them begin to thicken, as if the universe itself was looking at them. "We are going to the beginning," Tiyā whispered, "where there was no time yet, where the name was only about to sound." They entered a zone that the ancients called the veil of the moment. Here, time was fragmented and events did not move forward. Everything happened simultaneously. The sands of space reflected millions of lives, choices, universes. Tiyā walked between shadows, each one reflecting her possible. Tiyā, who remained at the station. Tiyā, who succumbed to the shadow. Tiyā, who died without delivering the word. But each of them whispered, "Go, you are the one who could. You are the thread of the source." And she walked. It stood in the center of nothingness, gigantic, made not of matter but of intent. Its columns sang, each note the name of those who had once spoken the word. Inside is the guardian. He was ancient, but not old. Genderless, formless, but with eyes full of stars. His voice was like a wind through eternity. "You came to hear the first name. But first you must know why it was forgotten." Tiyā stepped forward, followed by Xiron and Nem. Suddenly, the walls of the temple shook, and a flash of darkness appeared in their center. "He is already here," said the guardian. "The shadow of the word has come for the beginning." He, name without sound. It did not appear as a form, but as a pause between notes, as a word torn from a book, as the silence before a scream. "I am not the enemy. I am the balance," he said. "You have forgotten. Every word needs a shadow. You ask for the first name, but you do not know that it has already been spoken. And I am its echo." Light and darkness collided. Space rang. The temple began to collapse. Tiyā screamed, "Tell me the name, the first, the true one." The guardian sighed and opened his palms. A word emerged from them, unknown but familiar to every cell. Arain, a word meaning "I am the connecting one." Not "I am," not "I have power," but "I am between light and shadow, life and song, whisper and cry." Tiyā repeated, "Arain," and everything froze. The shadow crumbled into symbols that danced and dissolved. The word and the shadow became whole, and the universe sighed. Now they knew the first name. Now they could rewrite what was broken. But in the depths of the temple, in the silence, a whisper remained. "The name has been spoken. There remains only one, the last one." After Arain's pronouncement, the universe changed. Not immediately, but deep within its structure, a new note began to sound. Space began to adjust to the word. Where there had been struggle, understanding appeared. Where there had been silence, the song awoke. But the guardian did not smile. His voice became heavy like the gravity of a dying star. "You have found the beginning, but every beginning calls for an ending. There is a word that can complete everything, the last name. It does not destroy, it puts an end to everything." Tiyā felt a fear deep inside her that she had never known before. Not of pain, of disappearance, not of death, but of everything being so complete that even the memory would be gone. Although the shadow was dispersed, he, the name without sound, did not disappear. His parts dispersed to different corners of the universe like seeds. And in some worlds, strange things began to happen. Civilizations forgot they existed. Their stars dimmed, their languages disappeared from living memory. Some singers lost the ability to sing. The ships began to travel, but did not remember why. Nam sensed it first. There was a pause in his voice. "I'm losing one of my notes. Forgot it was sung." In search of a clue, they followed the mirror world, a place where echoes of unborn words are stored. Here, time does not flow but is reflected. There they met a being named Lane Moore, one of those who had once rejected the word to maintain balance. His body was pure reflection, his eyes windows into possible realities. The last name is not just a word, it is an acknowledgement of the end, not destruction but acceptance. It is not spoken, it is remembered. Tiyā understood. To know the last name, you have to lose everything, even yourself. Xiren pulled her aside. "If you remember this name, you will cease to be Tiyā." "Then," she replied, "it means I was ready for this from the very beginning." Now their path lay deep into the completed space, a place where there used to be something, but now there is nothing, not even memories, no stars, no time, only emptiness full of meaning. This place would not admit anyone, but Tiyā had the key, the name of the beginning, Arain. It opened the way, and beyond the veil they saw the inscription, written not in words but in understanding. He who remembers the last name will become the dream of the universe. But if he doesn't say it, everything will continue, without end, without form. At the edge of the completed space, everything was calm, not scary, not cold, just empty, as if the entire universe was taking a deep breath before falling asleep forever. Tiyā stood on a black surface that did not reflect her. The stars behind her no longer sang. Even within her, the word was silent, as if everything she was waiting to see if she would be the last. A silhouette appeared before her, tall, indistinct, changing with every step. He did not speak, but Tiyā heard. "I am the dreamer. I am the shadow of the last name, that which waits for the point to be ready. You can become me or reject me, but know this. Everything that exists will one day want to sleep." Tiyā didn't answer, but her thoughts were flashing. Kar, his victim, his flame. Nem, his song, the fading note. Xiren, a mechanism that has become sentient. Worlds that began to forget themselves. And yet, what if the end is salvation? What if the last name brings peace to all things? The dreamer held out his hand. On it lay a fragment, not a crystal, not a stone. It was a piece of time frozen in form. It pulsed, the memory of the word, inverted and blind. Say it, the last name, and you will let the universe sleep, forever. No pain, no worries, no word, no shadow. Just peace. Tiyā picked it up, and in that moment, I felt everyone. Billions of voices, lives, dreams, mistakes, songs that had not yet been sung, and a whisper. Peace is not the same as the way. She stood at the center of existence, the word on her lips, the last name in her heart. It waited to be spoken. She could say it, give the universe peace, turn everything into a dream without awakening. Be silent, and then the cycle will continue. Light and shadow, song and whisper, life and struggle. But there was a third way. Accept the word and the shadow, the beginning and the end. Do not reject any, do not choose, but connect. And then Tiyā did the impossible. She did not say the last name. She sang it. The song that had it all. The cry of dead stars. The laughter of children being born. Silence in the space between thoughts. And light and shadow holding hands. And the name that was born from this did not complete. It transformed. The name was Laven. I am not the end. I am the transition. The universe sighed. The stars that had disappeared began to shine again. Songs that were forgotten were heard again. The dreamer bowed and disappeared. Tiyā was no longer just a bearer of the word. She had become the guardian of the transition. The world has changed. No, everything has changed. When Tiyā spoke Laven, the shift became not an event but a process that began to flow through the fabric of reality. Everything that was rigid became flexible. Everything that was impossible became possible. But with the new freedom came anxiety. Some worlds began to flow, literally. The laws of physics no longer held true. Continents moved across the sky. People remembered lives they had never lived. And here and there appeared those who heard the transition as a call. They called themselves the Steppers. Tiyā met the first in the Surai system, a world like a glass labyrinth reflecting stars that do not exist. Atem was young, but his eyes reflected the universe itself. "I heard you sing the name," he said, "and I changed. I can walk between, not in time, not in space, but in meanings." He demonstrated one step, and he found himself inside his own shadow. Another step, and he stood behind Tiyā as if he had stepped out of her memories. "We are like this because you opened the door," Adam continued. "But not all walkers are light. Some get lost, too early, too greedy." There were others who followed in the footsteps of the transition. They did not sing. They did not bring light. They absorbed the residual meanings, tearing them from the worlds. They were called the distorted ones, those who tried to pronounce the name without being ready. They looked like human-shaped voids. Their words were echoes of other people's thoughts, and their touch made reality tremble. Zyron became a hunter of such. After the shift, he remained whole. A machine that became a mind, he is now a stabilizer in a world that is no longer stable. He doesn't say much, but within his new shell beats the core of the name given to him by Tiyā. Nam is no longer alone. After Leven, forgotten singers, creatures whose memories were sealed by the shadow, began to awaken in many corners. He gathers them. He teaches them to sing again. He teaches them not to be afraid of silence, but not to give in to it either. "We are the choir of the transition," he says, "and every voice is a path." But one day, in the center of the reassembled cosmos, a new signal came. It was short, simple. It sounded like a question. What will happen after the transition? And underneath it is a signature. One rune, unknown, but painfully familiar Tiyā. Rune of Kara. The signal with the Kara rune came from a region that even after the transition was called impenetrable. It was a fragment of reality, cut off from everything. It did not glow, did not respond, did not vibrate. There was no song. Even the name Leven did not penetrate there. But now it responded. Kar, the one who had disappeared to give Tiyā the way. He gave the sign, and Tiyā knew. He had not just survived. He had gone deeper than any singer, any walker, any mind. Before leaving for the impenetrable space, Tiyā called a council meeting. These were not rulers. These were the listeners, those who walked along the transition and did not lose themselves. Atem, the first walker, who could now see probabilities like text on a page. Nem, who became the voice of the multitude. Even children heard his notes in their dreams. Zyron, guardian of stability, maintains the balance between logic and miracle. And Ondala, an awakened singer from a race thought to be extinct. They looked at her, and each of them knew. This is not just a search for Kar. This is an attempt to go beyond the transition, beyond the edge of the new world, there, where meanings are born or disappear forever. The path to the impenetrable passed through a zone of mirrors, where every step revealed the deepest fears. Tiyā saw herself, without a word, forgotten, in a world where the transition turned into a fall. But she didn't turn away. "I see," she said, "and so I move on." When they entered the heart of the void, the sound disappeared. The light disappeared. Everything disappeared. Even thoughts. They moved only thanks to flashes of memory pulsating from within each of them. And right in the center, they saw him. He was alive, but not the same as before. He was shadow and light at the same time, structure and breath. His body was made of song and pause. His voice was not a voice, but an echo between words. "I found the last name," but he didn't say it. "I'm holding him, so that you can live." Tiyā came closer. "But why did you give the sign?" "Because what I was holding back began to whisper. It calls to others, and if it finds a new host, it will break free." Kar explained. The last name was not the only one. There were others, sleeping, hidden, deep names, capable not of completion, but of rewriting reality itself to suit another's will. One thing could make the pain eternal. Another option is to cancel the selection. Third, erase the freedom of the transition. The distorted ones are looking for them. Some have already found them. You must find them first and hide them in the song. Carr stood on the edge of existence, neither alive nor dead nor forgotten. He was the guardian of the first last name, but now he felt he was not alone. While I held the name, I heard others. They were not created. They were torn. From the depths where meaning does not live. They were not meant to be heard. But someone is looking for them. Someone is already calling them by name. Tiyā felt the alien vibrations echoing inside her. Cold, slippery. They didn't want to be spoken, but they wanted to be heard. Carr spoke of 3 names that were not to be spoken, but which were spoken once, and traces remained in the very fabric of reality. 1. Enziat, a name that binds the will forever. Whoever pronounces it can subjugate others, making them thoughts of his will. Neither the transition nor the light can liberate. 2. Kelferum, the name that denies time, allows one to be at every point in history at once, but in a distorted way. The one who owns it can rewrite the past, but pays for it with the present. 3. Shegol, a name that makes pain eternal. It is sought by those who desire punishment, not for enemies, but for everything. Worlds infected with this name cease to heal. The twisted that survived the shift have begun to form factions. They are no longer mere voids. They are now the order of the callers, and their goal is to restore all names to build a new silence. Tiyā, Carr, Nem, Zyron, and Atamnu. If these names return, the transition will be thrown back, and with it freedom and the word and the light. To counter the callers, the Song of the Seal was needed, an ancient form of chant that could lock the name back into the void. But there are few such singers left, and only one place could preserve its echo. The dust sphere of Lemri, a dying star orbited by a temple planet that had been abandoned since the disappearance of the first choir. As the ship moved through the distortions of space, Nam sang. He called out the names of the singers he sensed in the depths of space. Some responded, others were silent forever. And Tiyā wrote. She was writing down a new song that had been born in her after meeting Carr. She didn't yet know how it would end, but she knew. It will be a song that can withstand even the call of the distorted name. Dusty Sphere Lemri. It was not just a star, but a memory of a star, frozen in the moment of fading. It did not glow. It sang, distorted and tired, like the voice of an old magician who had forgotten who he was. In its orbit is the Temple of the Last Chorus, an ancient structure built from the fragments of vanished languages, held together by the gravity of meaning. No one has approached it for thousands of years, not because they couldn't, but because they didn't dare. Tiyā, Carr, Nem, Atem, and Zyron landed on the surface. The ship remained hanging in space, as if not daring to touch the land where the sealed song lives. The first steps were hard. Everything here was against the flow. The wind blew backwards, the light fell into the shadows, even thoughts returned to old fears. Carr walked first. The space around him did not dare move. He became an anchor in the chaos. The temple greeted them not with silence, but with the echo of old voices. Stop. Do not bring the transition where the sunset was. The song must be oblivion. But Tiyā stepped forward. In her hand was the resonance stone in which she kept the note of live N. When she said it, the walls shook. Space recognized her and opened the way. In the depths of the temple they found a living person, an old man, broken by time, covered in syllables carved into his skin. He sat in a circle of mirrors and chanted without sound. His name was Eri Mayan, the last of the choir. When Tiyā touched the mirror, he looked at her, and he cried. You brought the transition. I heard it in a dream. I kept the Song of the Seal, but it requires sacrifice. Tiyā sat down next to him. We know. We are not afraid. You don't understand, he whispered. To sing the Song of the Seal, you must use the name but not speak it. You must hold it within you, forever. This is not a fight. This is exile. He looked at Car. You're already holding one. You're doomed, and you know how much more you can hold out. Car nodded. One I carry, but maybe I won't be next. He looked at Atem. Atem, the strider, young and flaming, stepped into the center of the circle of mirrors. I heard the call. I knew that one day I would have to stop. I can't go between if there is no between anymore. Ahriman lifted his palms and the mirrors opened. Within was the song of the seal, not a melody but a pattern of sound written in the reflections themselves. Repeat after me, but know this, you will never say your own name again. Atem closed his eyes and began to sing. When the song of the seal ended, the sky of Lemri turned black, not from evil but from decision. There was a splash in the distance, not of water but of the fabric of reality. One of the twisted attempted to activate Kelfarum, the name that cancels time. But now the song of the seal worked, and the name didn't. When the song of the seal was awakened, the order of the callers felt it as a blow. Their name, Kelfarum, which had already begun to tear at the fabric of time, broke. It became muffled, like a voice forgotten before it was spoken. And then they decided, not on a hidden war, but on open silence. Hundreds of the corrupted gathered at the edge of the transition. They carried with them everything they had found, fragments of names, torn meanings, runes that held shadows of sounds. Their leader, a faceless shadow called Archaeos, declared, "If you do not give us the words, we will take them. We will build a new reality in which there will be no place for freedom or doubt." They launched an offensive. Tiyā, Kar, Nem, Zeron, and now Atem, bearing the song of the seal, met them at the edge of the spatial pattern woven into the very fabric of the transition. It was not a battle of arms. It was a battle of songs. The distorted sang the words, distorting reality. The singers of the transition answered, with words that connect. But the longer the conflict lasted, the more the very boundaries of meaning became clouded. Atem staggered. The song of the seal burned within him. It demanded more than just containment. It wanted to be sung aloud, to seal everything, even the passage. Kar stopped him. "No, it's not time yet. We don't have to finish. We have to tie." Tiyā stood between two worlds. She closed her eyes. She did not seek the name within herself. She listened to everyone. The cry of the distorted. Songs of the singers. The silence of the dreamer. Remembrance of the first word. And I found a name that does not divide, but unites. Not the beginning, not the end. A name that is pronounced together. Enlar, I am with you. When she said it, everything shook. Light and shadow did not disappear, but became intertwined. The song of the seal was not sung. It was reborn. It became a bridge, not a seal. Archaeos, hearing the name Enlar, stepped forward, his shadow trembling. That was also a name? Why did we forget him? Why did we think that the name is power? And it dissolved, not destroyed, but absorbed into the song like a forgotten line that became part of the choir. The transition remains, not as a path, but as an opportunity. Atem became the first singer of Link, keeping the balance between word and shadow. Nem led a new choir, not for war, but for the awakening of forgotten worlds. Zyron became the foundation, a machine that guards meaning but allows it to move. Kar disappeared, leaving behind a song that cannot be written down. Tiyā remained, not to rule, but to hear, to listen to new notes, new songs, new names that now began to be born in every being that chose freedom. And at the farthest point of the universe, beyond everything, it sounded very quietly. The name has been spoken, but the song continues. End.